In this video, we'll explore basic types and operations. Each programming language makes it possible for you to work with several different types of data. Typically, some of these types are very elementary, while others are more complicated. In Python, some of the elementary types are integer, float, which is for decimal numbers, and strings, which are for character string data. Some of the most commonly used complex types are lists and dictionaries, which we will not look at in this video. It's important to think about what type of information you will be working with, because that helps you determine what kind of operations you can carry out and what sort of results you should expect. For example, consider the following in Python. We can do simple addition of two integers. We can add a floating point number and an integer. We can add an integer and a floating point number, and we can add two floating point numbers. And we see that if we add the two integers, we got an integer result. If we add two decimal numbers, the result will be decimal. If we add one integer and one decimal, we still get a decimal result. This is because Python does not want you to lose any information that is in the decimal portion of the number. For example, if I do this addition, I really want the answer to be 3.5. It would not be helpful if the answer Python gave me for that was 3. We will get the same behavior if the values are stored in names instead. For example, if I have 4 dogs and I have 5 cats, then I will have 9 pets. When this addition is carried out, the value of dogs is retrieved from the symbol table. The value of cats is retrieved from the symbol table. And then the addition operation is carried out, and the result is stored in the variable pets. If I have 6 cookies, but somebody ate half of one of my candy bars, then the total number of treats I have is 7.5, 7.5. The floating point addition operation is carried out because I have an integer stored in cookies and a decimal number stored in candy bars. It's important in each programming language to know how different operations will behave on different types of data. We have seen here what the addition operation does with integers, with decimal numbers, and with combinations of those two. The addition operator, the plus symbol, is also defined for string data, in which case it carries out a string concatenation operation. If I have the string cats with a space at the end, and I add it, so to speak, to the string dogs, I get cats, space, dogs. This will also work if those values are stored in names. So I'll make animal 1 be cats with the space, and animal 2 be dogs, And now if I use the addition symbol, the addition operator, we get that string concatenation. I can get a little fancier, and in this case, I'm going to create a new variable, my pets, and what I'm going to do is concatenate the value stored in animal 1 with the string and with a space at the end, and concatenate that with the string stored in animal 2. And so we can see that my pets is now the string cats and dogs. What would happen if I tried to do something that is not defined in Python? Like I tried to add cats plus 6. I get a nice big error message telling me that I can only concatenate a string with a string, that I cannot concatenate string with an int or an integer. So Python could tell that I was trying to apply this plus symbol to a string value and an integer value. And it says, forget it. You can use that symbol, that operation with 2 numbers. You can use it with 2 strings, but you are not allowed to use it with 1 string and 1 number. The multiplication operator is also defined for strings in Python. Of course, we know what behavior to expect if we apply that to 2 numbers. We see it with integers. We can see it with a float and an integer, and we can see that with 2 floating point numbers. It also works with values that are stored in variables. So if I have 5 reams of paper and I have 500 sheets in each ream, in the same way that I did with addition, I can use those names, those variables in computation and compute the total amount of paper I have, which is reams of paper time sheets per ream. And as we would expect, I have 2,500 total sheets of paper. If I use that same multiplication operator symbol with a string and a number, it carries out what we call a string multiply operation, creating a new string that has multiple copies of the original. So if I take the string fun and I multiply it times 5, I get a lot of fun. And as we've done in our other examples, if I assign a value to greeting, I can do multiplication of that with a number, and the order does not matter because multiplication is commutative. And I could take that result and assign it to a new variable. And I can see the 7 copies of the string hello. Of course, it probably will make sense to you that the other arithmetic operators are not defined for strings, so there's no way to use subtraction or division with string values in Python.